This is a Relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
All right, it's week 2 of this federal election campaign. This is a hard-fought campaign for the Conservatives over the past 2 years, and they were enjoying the fruits of that labor. I don't have to tell this audience, Pierre Poilievre was enjoying like a 20-point lead in the polls over the floundering Liberals, led by the lame duck Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and then rumblings that Mark Carney was interested, and then a sweeping victory in the leadership campaign. And I don't have to tell you what's happening right now. The Liberals now enjoying sort of a Donovan Bailey-length lead over Michael Johnson. If you want a perspective check, I mean, they're looking back over their shoulder, wondering what happened to those official opposition Conservatives. But here's the deal, friends. It's pretty tough to build and hold a lead through an entire campaign. Could the Liberals be peaking too early? This is one of the many questions we will put in front of our intrepid group chat Real Talk Roundtable, a special edition on this Monday morning, an election 2025 edition. That in just a moment. First, I want to let you know that this episode is happening with the presenting sponsorship of Alberta's top online real estate school. You'll find him at relo.ca. That's RELO.ca. We've got a Relo grad sitting around this table, as a matter of fact, right now. Jarrett Campbell. Jarrett, like many others, realized that while you may have other options, there's no other real option. Relo, the only option for folks who want to be dead serious about their either new or growing career in real estate, residential, commercial, whatever it is, they've got you covered with their pre-licensing courses and all the way through expert consultants, folks that have worked in the industry and know what they're talking about. They will ensure your success. Get licensed easily, save on costs with their economical course bundles, and of course get one-of-a-kind support and business tips through their RECO system. You can learn more at relo.ca. Don't forget, if you're signing up for the Alberta commercial or residential real estate bundles, use that promo code Ryan100. It'll knock $100 off each of them. Keep some money in your jeans, some walking around money, as my grandpa used to say. That's Ryan100 when you get started today at relo.ca. I love this. We're starting off hot. We got Tyrone watching us live on Facebook right now in our Real Talk live chat powered by Park Power. Says, if the Liberals win, I'm throwing every ounce of myself into separation. That from Tyrone. I'm sure we'll get there too as we welcome to the program a return roundtable. Real Talkers love this one. This is a real life group chat. Now put on the record in front of microphones. Katherine O'Neill is the CEO of YWCA Edmonton and a longtime journalist at the Globe and Mail. Jenny Adams is principal at the Adams Agency. Harman Kandola, a lawyer, a home builder, and chair of the Edmonton Newcomers Society, and a co-founder, by the way, of Baz News Organization, and Jarrett Campbell with Avis and Young, and a graduate of Relo. We always like to mention that. It's great to see you all here today. I saw this note here in the live chat about separation, and I kind of got this giggle in my mind, because you can throw that in front of folks and you just wait to see what the body language looks like, and you immediately know how they feel. And KO, you almost winced a little bit when the word separation popped up. Are you seeing it on your social media channels? Are you seeing Western Canadians start to float the idea now that they're seeing the tides turn on federal polling?
Yeah, you're seeing it. And it's so interesting, because then and I was saying this coming into the room, then you see Quebec, where they've never been clinging to Canada harder at a time. And so it's really a weird time in Canadian politics to see, particularly with Carney not even speaking the language, and Quebec just going, we need to stay as a tight group. And then out in Alberta, we're off having these weird conversations at a time when we need to be together.
I know that people are we'll get comments right away that they'll say, literally, guys, you've been off all weekend. This is the first show back, and in the first 30 seconds, you're talking about separation. It's not the key focus of the campaign right now. Is this looking to you like a classic West versus East? How would you describe the dynamic of what you're seeing, Jenny?
Well, the first thing I want to say is I had to go out and actually look for information today. I'm not seeing any political messaging or advertising come my way. I have no idea what's going on with my phone, but I had to go find the campaigns and find their things. And first of all, I think that's a really big problem, because all we are hearing is about Trump and headlines with Carney. And so the Conservatives are not getting their message anywhere. But I do think it's a weird landscape right now for the Conservatives, because there was a poll that came out in February saying that I can't remember, 78% of Canadians want a pipeline east-west, right? We want some of these things that all of a sudden that we've always said the Liberals don't want and Quebec doesn't want. But now that we need to protect Canada, we might see a Liberal government that says, let's get that pipeline, let's get that oil going, which again takes the wind out of the sails of the Conservatives. So they've got a lot of work to do.
There's a lot of talk about pipelines right now and energy access and Canada's sovereignty and expanding our global markets. But are we all just fooling ourselves and forgetting why some of the pipelines failed in past? Like the Quebec actually refused, said that it was a non-starter, that many First Nations communities successfully sued, that the Supreme Court of Canada ruled against Northern Gateway. Like, are our memories just too short?
Well, also expensive, right? Like, what do we just spend on the pipeline we just built? $30 billion, $35 billion?
At least.
Like, it's crazy. Like, what, are we going to build another one? We got another $30 billion in 6 years?
We don't have a choice.
We
don't have a choice. Prentice has been saying this. JC, you wrote a policy on taking a pipeline up to Alaska for the Alberta Party.
Did you?
Like,
should have gone to Alaska. See, we can't go to Alaska anymore. We got to go to Hudson Bay now.
He really did, but we don't have a choice than to get that pipeline. However, that being said, Mark Carney is still, pro environment. So, just ignore that issue right now. But if he becomes prime minister, we're still going to be left with a prime minister that wants to see our oil industry go by the wayside. So
Ryu Street Fighters in the chat says Donald Trump will single-handedly get Mark Carney and the Liberals elected this year. There's no doubt what's happened. Johnny, why don't we throw up that mapping? This is, courtesy of our poll analyst, Philippe Fournier at 338 Canada. The top map that you're seeing, we'll describe it for the podcast, was an update. This is a federal projection on the 5th of January. And as you can see, a blue wave across the country, including over 100 seats projected for the Conservatives in Ontario, 45 projected for the Conservatives in Quebec. Fast forward to March 25th, just a week ago. Alberta and Saskatchewan holding strong with a Conservative projection. But other than that, it's red across the country, including dramatic turnarounds in Ontario and Quebec for the Liberals. How do you wrap your mind around it? Was Trump the game changer, like Ryu said there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think conservatism has a big problem. You spend years and years, Pierre Poilievre, Jenny Byrne, tell everyone that red Tories are weak, can't be trusted, need to be pushed out of a party, and telling everybody and selling a dream that Trump light is actually what Canadians need. So when confronted with the fact that Trump is so unpredictable and turns his focus towards Canada, they've got no answers. And that's been the story over the last month. And that is the predominant story, is that all of a sudden Mark Carney, the red Tory, shows up and he's eating your lunch. And you see the knives are already coming out. The knives are coming out for Jenny Byrne. The knives are coming out for Pierre Poilievre. And you'll see if they lose this election, what happens to conservatism? How do they rebuild this and how do they reimagine this?
That is fast. Yeah, what happened last week with Corey tonight? I don't know. Did you guys listen to Curse of Politics, that podcast, the round table? He is beyond going after the Conservative. And it's so interesting how the Conservatives eat their own when they see things not going well. And then there was a Globe and Mail story. There were 17 unnamed Conservative sources over the weekend taking a complete swipe at the campaign. That doesn't help when you have 28 days left in a campaign where this week is going to be dominated by tariff news. It's going to absolutely dominate. And so you've lost another full week. And then people are already going to early polls and already voting and things like that. So this campaign has gotten away from them. And unless they course correct in this massive way, I don't know how the Conservatives get it back.
But I thought they were, I thought they were doing such a great job, the Conservatives, on talking about affordability in Canada, right? Our housing crisis, we can't afford anything. It was relatable to everybody. And whether Trump is there or not, it's still going to be expensive and it's still going to be unaffordable. 2 months from now, it's going to be unaffordable. So where is that language around the affordability?
But it's just Trump.
I know, but wait.
To hear that. They want to hear,
Trump.
how are you going to stand up to Trump? That's
Sure.
become the ballot box question.
That's the question.
And I think they haven't pivoted as hard as, because
They
I think
haven't.
they did
No, I
such a good
totally
job.
agree. But
They were on it. They were like, man, we got this great campaign. We're up 20 points. We're talking to people. We're talking about affordability. We're nailing it. We're the people. And then it's time to pivot. And everybody loves to hang on to something that, was working well, right? It's really hard to give that up. And I think they just really don't want to give it up.
My point was, what I wanted to make with that is there was some optimism, and Conservatives, in my experience, don't sell optimism. They sell we hate Trudeau and we hate the Liberals and we hate Mark Carney and they're bad, instead of what are we voting for? How many times have we talked about trying to sell that? What are we voting for? And so I can't connect with anything that they're talking about.
I don't think they sold anything positive. They sold that Canada is broken. It is a broken nation, and then all of a sudden, people want to be part of a country that is not broken.
Yeah.
And so, how do you pivot from this is the worst this country's ever been? This country is broken. Everything's broken. The immigration system is broken. The economic system is broken. How do you turn that into a positive? How do you pivot that during a campaign?
I think you can. I think you totally
But
can.
based on what? Like right now, what do you see with what they're doing? All they're doing is trying to attack Carney personally.
Yes.
They're going
I
after
agree. No, we're agreeing,
plagiarism.
Harman. We're
It's
agreeing.
so weak.
We're
The,
So
the
weak.
plagiarism
It's like,
attacks that they
what
try
you
to
got?
push.
Wow.
But I think
that
if
was
you
the-
put us all in a room, we'd be able to come up with a way that you could sell.
Yeah,
You could do
there's
the
a way to do
pivot.
it.
And there's a lot of smart conservatives in the room.
They're just not doing
They're
it.
just
though,
not
Jenny.
doing it.
They're
No,
just
I
not doing
know.
it.
We're all agreeing here, which is strange.
What
Yeah.
did you?
We don't agree
We
often.
briefly touched on in our most recent episode on the plagiarism allegations that Mark Carney plagiarized large portions of his dissertation at Oxford 30 years ago, and there was kind of mixed response from real talkers. Some of them talking, Carney can't be trusted, he's sneaky Carney, and then some of them sort of like laughing at this, suggesting that it reeked of desperation, this
it's in the
political
weeds.
attack.
It's in the weeds.
Every
No one's paying attention to
every
that.
future prime minister of this country who's sitting in a university classroom right now is using ChatGPT to help write his essays. So it's not a big deal.
Or her essays, Harman. Why you got to be like
Yeah,
I
why
wasn't
do you have to
gendering
be
this.
like
Harman?
that?
That's really disappointing, Harman.
I wasn't trying to gender this.
Herman, do you hate women?
Look,
Just kidding.
Harman,
Because
why
that's an
do you
inside
hate
joke.
women?
wow. These are attacks we throw at
He
Jarrett
absolutely
Campbell.
does not. Yeah.
These are
Group
not
chat inside joke.
So I think the challenge for Pierre Poilievre is that he's not been serious on a lot of interesting topics like foreign interference. Here's one where, now talking about what Canada looks like on an international stage, talking about issues like foreign interference, when Pierre Poilievre tries to speak about certain issues, like we have the MP, the Liberal candidate out in Ontario, who's accused of, what he said about his opponent, giving him over to the Chinese government. Like, that's a serious topic. And yet it doesn't seem to hit because it's hard for Canadians to take Pierre seriously when he refuses to get a security clearance. And his justifications throughout over the past 2
Seem
years,
fishy.
the Conservatives made foreign interference one of their big planks coming out of last election. They did their own report. James Cummings led the report on foreign interference, and he comes back, and that's what leads to the foreign interference inquiry. And yet Pierre still doesn't have a justification for why he doesn't get a security clearance. And it blows up when the RCMP releases their story about, potential Indian government agents helping Pierre Poilievre. And again, he doesn't have a credible response for why he doesn't get a security clearance. And all that he continues to do is show that he's not the adult in the room and that Mark Carney is the adult.
So James Cummings was in here a week ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that, talking about security clearance and sort of like laid out the same justification for Poilievre as he is right now. Having had security clearance in the past, but not now, says we've all heard it. This audience has all heard it before. If he gets his security clearance, he can't comment publicly on matters that he's been made privy to. So then obviously he can't effectively oppose. Does anybody around the table buy that excuse or buy that justification?
Absolutely not. That is not a justification. Every other opposition leader has done it. They've still been able to talk about these issues, professionally and do it within the confines of that security clearance. There's former CSIS directors like Dan Stanton who've gone on the record and say this is not a credible explanation. And so when I'm going to take the experts' opinion on this piece, which is it's not a credible explanation. I don't care for the conservative spin. These are serious issues, and we need serious actors. And Canadians are looking at Pierre and saying he's not
Particularly
serious.
if you want to be prime minister, like, come on, and it looks weak, and there's no good. Yeah, as
It
you
looks
say,
like you're
there's-
hiding
It
something.
looks, and for 2 years, it's looking like this.
But it's part of his whole brand. He hasn't been serious about anything. Like he's not a serious individual, and
I
that goes back like
disagree.
20 years.
He's
right?
very serious about becoming the prime
And
minister.
they
of Canada.
were-
I think he's very serious about the things that he's selling. I disagree.
Memes and taglines and.
But that's how you
pot
compete in an
shots, like,
attention
come on.
economy is through memes and taglines. Like that's how you keep the attention of people. In this
It
day.
was
I
it was
agree.
it
I
was
agree.
working like
It
a
was
charm.
They were
working.
doing
It was
so
working.
well.
I agree.
And you know what? If it wasn't for Trump, Mark Carney would be boring people to death. I'm sorry. Like he'd be over-explaining. We
but
wouldn't
that's
be
the
paying
point.
attention.
It
But
is
the
about
conservatives
Trump,
have made
and it changed.
politics about memes, and the liberals
Not
are doing it better right now.
conservatives.
Yes,
they're
the-
doing it better. Like I don't know what happened. Who
Yes.
changed that room? But they're killing it on the meme
But
game.
that is a good point. Not very many people in Mark Carney's team have changed. They're all Trudeau's people. They're literally all Trudeau's people who are going to have the exact same policies when Mark Carney becomes prime minister. And so I hope the Conservatives are going to start pointing that out more and more in a way that Canadians can hear. But I mean, maybe the ship's already left.
But I think that they are doing that. Like, I mean, it's like even we talked to Supriya Dwivedi about this a couple of weeks ago. Like when Mark Carney swears in, and the first thing Pierre Poilievre does, which I actually love. I love this stuff. Like with regards to the politicking and the thrust and parry. Like when Poilievre goes on and he just says, "I'd like to offer my congratulations to Justin Trudeau's former economic advisor, Mark Carney." Carney from, like he is reminding everybody. They're calling him carbon tax Carney. And then it just seems like with these, I know I see conservatives in my orbit getting pissed off saying that all Mike Carney's doing is stealing Poilievre's campaign promises, including the carbon tax.
Great.
But he's,
That's
lopping
not
them
dumb.
off at the knees, right?
Totally
like
is.
Totally
is.
Well, leadership matters, Jenny. Leadership matters. People don't care about the person in the back room. They look to the leader. And in this case, they're looking at Mark Carney. They're not looking at the team behind him, right? Because if you want to go behind Pierre Poilievre and you look at Jenny Byrne and how problematic she's been in the past in attacking immigrant communities, in attacking newcomers to Canada, like nobody's doing that, right? They're going after Pierre and his policies. And that's why, you know what? I think when you try to go after Mark Carney and go behind him, I don't think those people care for those arguments because it's about leadership.
Well,
it also doesn't help that Trudeau left on a high, right? Like, as unpopular as he was, people remember things. You got a lot of recency bias, and a lot of people are going to remember Trudeau for the last thing he did. He killed it for like the last 2-3 weeks, right? He was already out, leadership races going on, and he stood up there and said all the right things about Trump.
I don't think he killed it.
Look at the polling numbers. Look at his popularity. His popularity totally swung, and so for a lot of people,
were so pumped. They're like, "See ya."
They're like, I hate Trudeau," and then they watch him and they're like, "Actually, wasn't that bad." Like it kind of falls flat when he left on, relatively speaking, a high note.
Jenny, how did the
First of all, I hate that I'm the conservative.
She's a conservative.
I'm barely a barely a conservative, and I have to be the person.
Let me point out. Let me say something real quick. Okay, we've doubled our YouTube subscribers. And this is just a humble. It's actually not even humble. It's just a brag. We've doubled our YouTube subscribers in the last year. Thank you, Johnny. Our live tuning, our live stream presented by California Closets is up 600%. Wow. And the reason I mention all this is there's a lot of new people. There's a lot of new real talkers that are maybe not familiar. So let me just run through real quick to remind people and then right back to you. Katherine O'Neill is the former president of the PC Party of Alberta. Jenny Adams, longtime political strategist. He worked on a number of different campaigns and Catherine's campaign manager when she ran for the Progressive Conservatives. Harman Kandola, a former Progressive Conservative candidate.
And a city council candidate.
And former future mayor of Edmonton. And JC, you've worked on a ton of campaigns, including Conservative campaigns.
Including Harman's. I was Harman's campaign
Okay, so
manager,
I just want to establish for our new audience members, because I know that we're going to get comments about how this is just a bunch of libtards out for coffee and a bunch of, it's just a left-wing echo chamber. And
that's me.
I did that's Johnny.
Johnny is just trashing us.
So Jenny, back over to you. You're not the lone conservative around the table, but what I love about this group chat, what I love about these group chat roundtables is that we're seeing things from all sides, and you guys are talking strategy.
Yes. Well, for me, as the conservative, center-right person here, what I care about is the economy. I care about protecting Alberta's rights. I care about being respected, and I care about a future for my kids. And what I think is Mark Carney is showing that he can lead those things, right? And so the scarier things about conservatism that we don't like, that Pierre, when he's sounding too much like Donald Trump, immediately we think that we're going to get Donald Trump 2.0. I'm leaning to the safer thing, and I think a lot of Canadians are, because they're scared about what Donald Trump is doing, and then they don't want the same thing from Pierre. So, they really do have some work to do, but they need to make what they're talking about relatable. If you're talking about, Trudeau's team or Carney's team is the same as Trudeau and all these make it relatable to people so they understand what that means to them.
The
and
boat
the impact
has sailed.
It means.
It's over.
I'm just trying to argue a point for the sake of arguing a point.
I don't think
here.
it's over.
Yeah, I don't think it's over.
I think the Liberal
April 2nd.
I think that Carney's had not a great first 10 days or whatever it's been.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter.
He's very untested. The Conservatives have a ton of cash in the bank. I don't think it's over.
Auto tariffs come. Ontario's going to be
the
mad.
Debate will be it could be the turning point, but if it isn't, it's completely over because of what's happening this week with the tariffs.
I think
going
the
in.
auto
If you're in
tariffs,
Ontario and Quebec, and I grew up in Ontario, this is beyond concerning for those two provinces. They have so much political power, and they have shown in the polls the swing. We've never seen a swing like this in polls. Have we? Have
No.
any of us ever seen this?
Yes, the PC party. You guys, it's almost our 10-year anniversary
Yes,
of everybody losing.
Yay, great.
There's
It's
an
great.
example.
We did see that. But
coming
the
up.
swing,
We need a party.
Ontario and Quebec are not, unless something because look at the other two leaders. Poilievre and Singh have been well known. They already know these two, and they're not going to change their mind on these folks. Carney, they're open to it and have really swung. And if you look at the crosstabs in Ontario and Quebec, I can't see them coming back unless something happens in the debate that completely changes their mind that this guy isn't ready.
Well, I think one of the things that Conservatives are doing very intelligently is, number one of the biggest stories of this election is the collapse of the NDP vote.
Yes.
Right? There's all those criticisms that Pierre and the Conservatives leveled against the NDP Liberal coalition have hit, and Jagmeet is carrying that baggage in a way that Carney doesn't have to. And so for him, they've collapsed. And Pierre's going after those ridings. And it's interesting because there's ridings in this country that will swing from the NDP to the Conservatives, and having an NDP vote collapse opens them up. Places like, Victoria and Vancouver Island. There are places where the Conservatives can make inroads. And because, again, a lot of that benefit has gone to the Liberals. Look at Alberta.
Harman, you got to help your guy. You got to help your guy.
I think the criticism to Jagmeet has been the same, is that he's, you see Thomas Mulcair come out and attack him all the time, right? Jagmeet came in as the change candidate for the NDP, and they kept all the same people in the seats. He kept the Peggy Nashes of the world. He kept all the same people. You can't do that.
It's his third election,
And
too. He's old news.
Well, if you're going into a supply and confidence agreement with the Liberals, and the only thing you get out, you get dental care, pharmacare. You could have done that as a party.
The guy wishes he would have called the election a long time ago.
I don't
and I call him
understand the
Harman's
NDP
guy
side.
because sometimes Harman's NDP and sometimes Harman's
no.
conservative, and today he's liberal.
He's
You
an
can never keep
opportunist.
track
More than
of.
anything, he's
Yes,
an
he's
opportunist.
opportunist,
Wow.
but he
So-
still hasn't won.
He knows
So-
where his bread is
So
buttered.
you'll see that the Liberals are up in the polls. Now he's likes the Liberals.
Yeah,
If you
exactly.
Catherine showed up in
months
Liberal
ago,
red.
he liked the
I
Conservatives.
did
Catherine showed up in Liberal red.
I'm a navy
How about
blue.
Brian? Did you see Brian
And you
Jean's
guys are
tweet
boring gray.
out of the Alberta legislature last week? Did you see this? So I guess a bunch of NDP MLAs. I'm not privy on the inside of what went into it, but obviously they must have had their NDP MLA group chat. So a bunch of them wore red, and they were wearing like Canada flags and Canada pins and whatever. And then Brian Jean, obviously UCP minister, tweets a photo of it and says, "What's with the NDP showing up in Mark Carney red, but they're all wearing their Canada stuff?" And I was just like, "Oh my god!"
So did Brian
what's
Jean
going on right now?
understand?
I don't. I think it kind of went. I think it kind of
okay.
went over his head a little bit. I thought it was kind of funny, but it was cute. Maxine is watching us live on Facebook right now in our Real Talk live chat, powered by Park Power. Get exclusive deals on internet, electricity, and natural gas at parkpower.ca/realtalk. Maxine says, "Don't you think that Mark Carney has chosen those cabinet members and this team because there's no time for a learning curve? We have to deal with Donald Trump right now." Is there justification for that? If he's been criticized for essentially rolling out the Trudeau 2.0's
No, we're not even
team-
talking about his candidates. We're talking about the
Like
people
behind
who
the
work in
scenes.
his
Behind the
office.
scenes.
Yes,
Sure.
I think if you become prime minister, you need people who are qualified. But I also think that it doesn't look like you're going to change much if you're literally keeping the same people who were the puppeteers of Trudeau to then still be in your office.
Jillian says, "I love that Trudeau left on a high. He deserved it after all the BS he put up with from the Conservatives. I wanted to puke when they were attacking him for going to hockey or going to Taylor Swift with his kids." David says, "There's no such thing as progressive conservative anymore, because if you don't fall far right, you're alienated from the party. Why do these moderate conservatives allow the lunatics to attack minority groups?" Could you see, I mean, if, Johnny and I were shooting the shit about this on Friday off camera, kind of what happens to leaders, especially leaders that have enjoyed comfortable leads in the polls and then see it fall out from them. Everybody's been watching this video from over the weekend. Have you seen this? Just an unfortunate photo op. This is Pierre Poilievre serving up pizzas. And who cares? This could happen to anybody, but the pizza falls off. And then now he's trying to use his hand. And good sport, he laughs it off. And then you see someone dissolve this. It kind of reminds me of Jason Kenney trying to fill the Dodge Ram with gas. Yeah, that one's worse.
That one's worse
Hey,
because
Kenny turned it around in one big though, so
Yeah,
that doesn't always affect you.
It doesn't always
I've tried to make pizza. I found that very relatable. I mean, I've done that, and you fall in the bottom of the oven. It's really hard, actually. It is actually quite hard.
I definitely
What
would
you
drop
want
the
is to
pizza.
become a meme, actually. You do want to, like Bernie Sanders,
But you see
want
the
to become
kid's
a meme.
face. His son's like, "What's going on, Dad?" Like, that's sweet.
At least
Becoming
it
a
was hot.
meme is not necessarily a bad thing.
It's
You're just
not
all over
necessarily a
everyone's
bad
radar.
thing, right? I mean, it depends what you do in order to become the meme. But
Not when you want to become prime minister and you're like dropping pizza. I don't know.
The interesting thing, we're talking about leadership. We're talking about Jason Kenney. You're talking about Aaron O'Toole wins this election. You have Aaron O'Toole in charge of the Conservatives right now?
No.
He
What are you
faces,
talking about? Kidding me?
Aaron O'Toole would have won this election.
They wouldn't have the war chest they have. Pierre Poilievre has created a force of
Aaron
the party.
O'Toole
If he
couldn't
was,
win
they
before,
didn't have
why
the
would he
money.
win
They
now?
didn't have the volunteers. They wouldn't have the candidates.
Talk this up,
Serious
Jenny.
guy,
Jenny,
former
ask-
military,
unserious.
Former military
guy going up against Trump.
Exactly.
Oh.
Former military guy who had the credentials, could go up against Trump, be able to flex and push back in a way that Pierre Poilievre can't. Because Pierre Poilievre sold himself as mini Trump, as little Trump. Like, you can't deny that that's the direction and the tone and the messaging that the Conservatives have pushed for the last 2 years. And for it to turn this way on them, it is kind of poetic justice for what they've done in terms of trying to vilify and introduce that toxicity into Canadian politics. But Aaron O'Toole didn't do that. He didn't engage in that level of pettiness with his opposition. He looked like the adult in the room. And I think if you have him right now, again, accusing me of being anti-conservative, Jenny.
No. You put
you
those
have
own
Aaron
words in your
O'Toole in
mouth.
there.
Yeah.
As a former military
really
guy who
loves
had those
Aaron
credentials,
O'Toole.
Aaron O'Toole was a good leader.
Do you have a bromance? Aaron
Yes.
O'Toole? You
Yeah,
and-
like, I don't know where this is coming
No,
from.
this
That was
That's
really out of left field.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't even know.
I did not prepare my. How would Aaron O'Toole do in this election talking points? I didn't expect us to.
Okay, but can we ask? Do you
Jason
think Donald?
Kenny's coming back.
I'll let
Hey, Jason Kenny. if he
Kenny
was
will
really
come
here.
back
Kenny
and
would
lead
win
this
thing.
party after this election.
think he
I
should.
think he will.
Kenny would have won this.
Will says, I agree with Harman here. And Vamp Fashions, I don't know. Pierre has a pretty awesome wife that is likely experienced in not dropping dinner. His job isn't pizza, it's ending the Pizzagate cult. Vamp Fashions. How about this from Russ? Russ agrees with Harman, says Pierre is now a liability, not an asset on the ledger. Cam in the pizzeria is watching us, and he just says that whole scene is horrific. I don't think Cam's dropping many pizzas at Basili's Pizza in Leduc. Brad, watching us live on LinkedIn, says, can we pause and give credit to Mark Carney? If he wasn't a credible economist or candidate, then the swing would not have happened as quick and as hard.
Okay.
Could
totally.
Karina Gould have prompted
No.
the swing? That from
Okay,
Brad.
but
A lot of
everybody
people in
know.
the
Can I
group
say
chat-
one thing? I shared this article from the National Post or whatever a couple days ago. That if you look at the media coverage in the UK, they're like, whether you're on the left or the right, they're like, guys, we
He's
didn't
not
like
running in the
Carney.
UK, though,
No,
Jenny.
Therese. No,
We
what's
didn't like Carney. There's
Jenny.
articles from
Jenny.
Oh, the
the
National Post said that. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. The National Post. They probably did.
No, but that's a good
deep
point,
dive.
Jared.
I think that
That's a
was
very good point.
into both sides of the issue and concluded
My
with
mother-in-law has completely swung her political views, and she loves Carney right now. And my 15-year-old said, "Mom, do you think Nana is really a liberal, or do you think that she doesn't know she's watching liberal news?" Even
older
he was smart
demographics
enough
have
to
embraced-
understand.
Have embraced Carney. This is the revenge of like the boomer generation.
Yeah.
This is
We're
their
talking- he's the last
last
boomer
political.
candidate.
Boomers love 'em.
My parents did not ask to be dragged into this.
Neither did Nana. I'm
But
sorry.
my wonderful parents are in the capital city right now. They live in Southeast Calgary. I told you guys that when I grew up, when I was like 15, 16,
Jason
17
Kenney's at
years
your
old,
house.
Jason Kenney's fundraisers were in our kitchen. Jason, meet the candidate muffin mornings type stuff. We didn't have a lawn sign. We had a
muffins.
4x6 foot lawn sign. I grew up under a flag. I grew up under a banner. So to be clear, okay, and I'm talking to my parents. They're up here over the weekend watching the U11 hockey playoffs. Shout out to all the young kids that battled this weekend. And I'm talking to my parents and my mom. Obviously, they're ardent real talkers. And my mom says, "So who do you think's going to pull it off? What do you think's going to happen?" I go, "Well, what do you think's going to happen?" And she goes, "Well, all of our friends in Southeast Calgary." And she kind of leans in and she goes, "They're voting for Carney."
Yeah, see?
And I'm going,
See?
So
what?
interesting.
I mean, these are people that,
Yes.
like, if there were Jason Kenney car flags, they would have had them.
Why weren't there Jason Kenney car
Why weren't
flags?
there
There
Jason
probably
Kenney
were.
car
Oh, if we
flags?
could go back in time.
Southeast
Did
Calgary?
what did Donald Trump do to help Mark Carney, if anything? Read into this. This was posted on Truth Social just heading into the weekend following this high-profile call, his first call, Donald Trump and Mark Carney. Quote, "I just finished speaking with Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada." Not the governor, by the way. He says Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada. "It was an extremely productive call. We agree on many things. We'll be meeting immediately after Canada's upcoming election to work on elements of politics, business, and all other factors that will end up being great for both the United States of America and Canada." No 51st state comments. "Thank you for your attention to this matter," says Donald Trump.
And that's, and that's where people are, it's so chaotic. And this looks like it's less chaotic. And if you're a voter right now, you're just looking for the person who can, because this is not a person that you really can, every day it changes. So you're looking for someone.
Ask yourself a question. If Donald Trump is now calling someone
finish?
Prime Minister, yes.
Yes,
Sorry,
Jenny's ripping it up today.
I have to because you guys are so boring. You all agree.
I want to say that
He had an Aaron O'Toole hot take. I mean, he's trying.
comment-
He's trying.
the
Okay, let
comments
Catherine
liked
finish.
it.
I interrupted.
yes,
Let her finish.
The comments like
I
it.
want to finish in the way that it's like I think we haven't talked enough about the war, the group chat thing, the war stuff that happened with Yemen, because I think that played into what's happening with
let's
the
go into
election.
it.
Because I think this is a very chaotic government. It's deeply unserious. They're talking about war plans on a civilian
Looping in the
Yes.
editor of The Atlantic.
Yes. And so if you are us, and particularly if you grew up in Ontario, you're in Quebec, you're within 200 kilometers of the border. We're not close to the U.S., but when you grow up like I did, 100 kilometers from the U.S. border, that is a neighbor that always looms large. So when you see stuff like this, I was about to swear, stuff like this happen across the border with the South, any sort of, okay, we can negotiate with this person is a good sign. Not that I don't think anyone trusts that Mark Carney's going to be the Trump whisperer, but I think they're going to think, okay, I'm going to have a job tomorrow if this is a person that he's going to negotiate with.
Okay, can I now?
He's serious, right? He went through
Because
the
he's-
2008
Guys,
financial
we're
crisis.
smarter than
he went
this.
through the
No, but
Brexit
Donald
crisis.
Trump
He has
wants
sat in the room.
Mark Carney as prime minister. We are being manipulated.
Do you think
Come
he
on.
doesn't want
That
Poilievre
is-
either?
I don't know
Jenny,
We are being manipulated.
Jenny,
What do you mean
Jenny,
you're being manipulated?
You guys are
Jenny,
smarter
Jenny,
than
Jenny,
this.
Jenny,
he's got
here's
no grand
my
strategy.
last
He's got no
thing
grand
on this,
strategy on
Jenny,
this
though,
one.
is thinking you can understand Trump is like asinine. So nobody
Yeah,
nobody
agreed.
can understand this person. So reading these tea leaves,
Come on, you're believing what you want to believe right now, because the thing
Well,
is
I wanna
Donald Trump
believe-
is not stupid. Okay, so he called him prime minister finally. He said we're going to
Yeah.
meet after the election. It's going to be good. He seems consistent and reasonable. He knows people are going to be like, yes, this is good. If he is doing that, it's not because he wants Mark Carney as prime minister. I'm sorry. I think the Conservatives would be a harder prime minister. They care more about military.
I don't.
They care. Conservatives as a party fundamentally care more about investing in the military. They care more about protecting their own rights. So I think Donald Trump is manipulating us, and I think that
I think he's always manipulating
Well,
us.
yes.
Like that's
So-
we're agreeing. He's always manipulating. But I think if you're a voter, I'm going back to
Yes,
the
it's
election.
working. Yes, it's
You're
working.
like,
But I think he's
will go
manipulating
with a
us.
person who has a Oxford PhD, who's been a bank of economics.
Who's had a job?
Who's had a
Okay,
job.
I'm sorry,
Who's paid
Jenny.
people.
I want the guy who's had a job.
Everybody, I want to stop right now.
Is that too much to ask of a politician in this
Ryan,
country?
Ryan,
Can you work
I
a
love
real
that.
job?
I don't actually like my role that I have to come in here and pretend I'm a Pierre Poilievre loving conservative.
You know
Because
who
I
I'm-
am
You don't
not.
have to.
No. I need for my own reputation right
Yes.
now. I'm doing this so that we can have an interesting
Yes,
conversation.
yes.
I'm playing the opposite
Yes.
side, but I'm not a hardcore conservative. Just like Harman's not a hardcore NDPer. We're all here just arguing the other side.
He's an
and none
opportunist.
of
He's
you
a
will
hardcore
take
opportunist, so
none of
he's-
you will take the side of conservatives. So
I
have
just
to
want
do
to
it.
have an
don't-
economy for my children. Like
I want my kids to
I
wanna
think
live in
we're all-
Canada, and I
I'm
agree that Mark
partisan right now.
Carney-
The Liberals
I-
has had
he's
10 years. How's the
aspirational.
economy
Guys,
going?
I'm scared. Like, let's be honest. Like, this is the biggest threat that has faced our economy in our lifetimes. And like, if we are not thinking that the economy, like nobody's investing, look at consumer confidence in the US.
Yep.
This is unreal what is happening.
Yeah,
and we're
productivity
talking
crisis.
about
So imagine
dumb
just had
the
liberals
Liberals did
in
anything
government.
about
It
the economy
doesn't,
for the
but
last 10
that's
years.
yesterday.
10 years of stagnation.
Is it?
That's right.
And that's where our economy's at.
Yeah.
Yes.
And now we're handing the keys back to the same group that just did 10 years of stagnation on our economy. Imagine where we would have been had they done something about the economy for the last 10 years. We'd be in a much stronger position to
But that's-
survive this.
but that's
accident.
yesterday
If
and
No,
you
it
do
isn't.
believe
It's
that
the
this is an
exact same
existential
people
crisis,
who are making the same
and this is where the pivot
choices.
should have gone
Okay.
to. If
Okay.
you do believe this is an existential crisis, do you not
how
want to be
it goes
stronger?
on our group chat.
We got to talk. This is the group chat.
I'm
The
just
good
trying to
news
help
is
Jenny out. I
that
gotta do
everybody's
something. Thank you,
tight
Jarrett.
things. Gizmo in our live chat basically says, "You guys," says Steve, the conservatives. That's how they feel about military. Gizmo says that's why Stephen Harper spent less on the military than any conservative government.
I mean,
in
it's a fair
history.
comment.
He says, "Stop with the military talk." Gizmo says, "I was in the military. You guys are wrong." Gizmo, thank you for your service. We'll talk about tariffs. We're going to hear from JD Vance in just a quick second. Johnny, would you
as a
tee up
guest?
some beautiful
the
opera
coffee?
music? Could you give me some opera
I need
music?
to relax.
You
Things
guys
are really
need-
spicy in here,
You
guys.
guys here. I
Let's-
got the, you
let's
guys. You,
chill
know,
out.
you guys need a 60 of Bailey's. So there you go. As I remind this audience that the Edmonton Opera has just rolled out its 2025-26 season. You can find it all online at edmontonopera.com right now. This, much like politics, is all about legacy. Some legacies pass down, others must be claimed. Edmonton Opera exploring in the 2025-26 season what it means to inherit, build, and redefine a legacy through a bold lineup of performances, and special events. It opens with Bravi, that's opera's greatest hits, a grand celebration of opera's most powerful and timeless music in partnership with the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra. That comes up at the Winspear Centre October 9th and 11th. In February, audiences will witness the world premiere of Indians on Vacation. This is a poignant and comedic take, a new opera based on Thomas King's novel of the same name. This runs February 5th, 6th, and 7th at the Northern Alberta Jubilee Auditorium. And, friends, the season will conclude with the third chapter of Wagner's legendary Ring cycle, Siegfried. As fate is forged in fire, we learn by following Siegfried as he discovers his true heritage. An epic tale of heroism and fate will be performed at the McLab Theatre at the Citadel in May. All of the details and tickets available online at edmontonopera.com. Friends, Full House's early bird lottery is here, and it's Alberta's biggest early bird value. Get this, you can win a car literally every day in May, or you can take the cash. The early bird prize is the Car a Day giveaway in May. There's going to be 31 winners, a winner literally every single day. Plus, it's your choice to take the car or to take the cash alternative. Make sure you buy your tickets by midnight, April 2nd, and you'll be in for so much more than just even the early bird prize draws. A ton of other prizes, including, of course, the 3 grand prizes. Grand prize number 1, worth over $2.25 million, including a stunning legacy signature dream home, a 2025 Alfa Romeo Stelvio Tributo Italiano, and 20 grand cash. Plus, grand prize 2, dream vacations for life, or $210,000 cash to spend on travel or whatever you choose. And grand prize number 3, I love these things, that dream tiny home. Choose a $250,000 Fritz tiny home gift certificate or 200 grand cash. You can get your tickets today at fullhouse.ca. JC, that tiny home would be nice on your lake property. I have dreams of getting a lake lot and putting a tiny home on it. You know, anytime I'm getting any dreaming done when it comes to home, I'm thinking of California Closets. Best in the business in custom closets and storage solutions. Proudly, since they started, Canadian-owned and operated. California Closets team of designers work right here proudly in Alberta with Alberta families, and all of their materials are manufactured right here in Alberta. That's right. This is a locally owned business, custom closets and storage solutions, all of it guaranteed for life. California Closets can custom design to fit your space and budget, and it all starts with a free consultation. You can book that today at californiaclosets.ca. And we're thrilled to let you know that the 4th annual Real Talk Golf Classic goes Thursday, the 19th of June at the Ranch Golf and Country Club. Nobody does more tournaments in Alberta than the team at the Ranch. More than 120 tournaments a year. They are dialed in. If you're in charge of your community association, your nonprofits, or your corporation's golf tournament, go no further than theranchgolf.com. Make sure you let them know that Real Talk sent ya.
Can't wait to see you guys out there.
Oh, man, you guys all going to be at the Real Talk Golf Classic? It's going to be a good one.
I didn't register yet. I got to get on
Well,
there
registration just opened, so you're not too far behind, but I want to make sure that you don't miss it. You're typically first to register, JC. You've been a little bit asleep at the switch. That's Jarrett Campbell, Harman Kandola, Jenny Adams, and Katherine O'Neill. Before we get to your take on April 2nd, the tariffs we're expecting, retaliatory tariffs from the United States. J.D. Vance, Vice President of the United States, spoke about it, a recurring theme. Canada doesn't have the cards. Here's the Vice President of the States.
For the Canadians, and we have many dear friends in Canada, and of course we love the Canadian people, but the Canadian leadership threatening retaliatory tariffs against the United States, as President Trump often says, they just don't have the cards. There is no way that Canada can win a trade war with the United States. What President Trump has said is that he wants to level the playing field. For decades, Canadian leadership has forced American farmers and American manufacturers to play by an unfair set of rules. All President Trump has said is that we're done playing by an unfair set of rules. If you're going to do something to our industries, then we're going to do something back to your industries. That's how you protect American manufacturing, and that's how you protect American jobs. Now, what I'd say to the American people is look, the president ran on this, and he said very clearly that we're done being the piggy bank of the entire world. For 40 years, in the same way that our European friends, I think, have neglected international security, for 40 years, a lot of our friends all over the world have used America as a piggy bank. They have used us to absorb all of their excess economic production. And what does that mean for Americans? For Americans, that's meant manufacturing jobs declining. That's meant middle-class wages going down. That's meant whole towns that have been hollowed out by empty factories. And that means an America that is less safe because our manufacturing isn't as powerful now as it was 30 years ago. I've got all these brave Americans in front of me and a few behind me too. We want to send, if God forbid we have to send Americans to war, we want them to have weapons, the best weapons in the world that are manufactured in America and not in China. The way you do that is to rebuild the American manufacturing sector. The days of America being the piggy bank of the world, the days of closed factories, the days of people not being able to get a middle-class job in this country, they're over. And yes, that means we're going to have to fight back even against some of our friends and their unfair economic practices. But the long-term consequence of this is going to be higher wages, more manufacturing, and more economic security for the American people.
All right, that's Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, as he alluded to, standing in front of a bunch of soldiers. Cactus Sheriff wondering, where's his suit? J.D. Vance rocking the windbreaker. Nice little Zelensky reference. Yes. But what do you make of that? So you got Donald Trump. We had a very productive phone call. We're going to say, and then you got J.D. Vance 2 seconds later.
Well, and I think J.D. Vance says it a lot more clear than Donald Trump does because you're not distracted by all the noise that Trump brings. He makes some good points. And I think our auto industry and our agriculture industry really are going to be harmed, and our oil industry is not going to be. And so, I mean, what he's saying makes sense in my mind, and I think Americans think it makes sense. It means a rocky road for the rest of the world for a long time, obviously, but I think that it is going to be very interesting on April 2nd. I don't know if the effects are going to come in quick enough that Canadians will feel it before the election, but if you tax, he's saying if you're taxing us,
we can't win a trade war.
Yeah,
right.
We can't.
Like, the effect on the Canadian economy is going to be far, far bigger than the effect of the American economy, but it will still affect the American economy. And look at the stock market in America and look at the inflation expectations, and Trump's turning underwater from his approval rating. And so there's a lot of cracks forming. But from the Canadian perspective, what I found interesting was the comment about agriculture, the unfair rules around our agriculture.
Supply management.
Man, look at this. We're sitting here with supply management. We're all paying more for dairy. We're all paying more for cheese and for eggs. And time again.
The Max Bernier talking point over here. Jarrett Campbell.
Well, but it's true. And so we, even a few years ago, right, we went to go liberalize trade with the Europeans, and they said, well, can we, get access to your dairy? Oh, well, actually we don't want liberalized trade with the Europeans because heaven forbid there's about 200 dairy farmers in southern Quebec. We better protect them. And even if you go back to the liberal debate, the liberal leadership debate, they all had to take a minute to really pump the tires and how great, our dairy production is. And now these guys are going, well, we're going to get into a trade war. We're going to cause a bunch of economic harm. Do you think you could open it up? And it's like, do you think we're going to? Do you think maybe we could say, wouldn't it be nice if not only could we avoid this issue with the Americans, with the Europeans, but also the average Canadian also pays less for their milk and their dairy and their eggs. And again, if you go back to liberal leadership, they're all there pumping the tires of supply management and how much they love it. So maybe you should vote Conservative if you want to take that one issue and see a change.
Matthew in the live chat says, we need to kill Canada's auto sector and force our cheese on them so that our guns don't get built in China. From Matthew.
But we have water, we have electricity, we have a lot of cards that natural resources.
Yeah, but he's just going to come take them.
How? Well, he's not going to come take.
But I'm just in the short term. They're talking in Michigan, turning off there's the water, the electricity. If you're along the borders there is so much sharing that goes on, particularly with North Dakota, Minnesota. There's so much trade that happens there that if you're these provinces that do business with these border states, they're going to be hit hard, and they're already, I'm sure, calling the White House going, lay off this because it's already affecting trade.
Or even just tourism, right? The senator out of Maine was going lay off, right? Because tourism in Maine,
year over year, February as compared to February, cross-border visits down 500,000 from Canadians crossing into the United States. I know you have to leave us a little bit early, so I do want to ask you this. I want to circle back on it. You just said, well, he's going to come take it. Now, I know for most people, myself included, the thought of the United States actually annexing Canada, actually, flying fighter jets over Canadian airs, actually sending troops to the border is preposterous and unimaginable. But crazier things have happened.
No, it's imaginable.
You've got a very unpredictable
totally
commander-in-chief. Is I've been sort of shrugging it off, come on. But is there a part of you that thinks it could actually materialize over the next number of years?
I think the only thing consistent about Donald Trump is he's not consistent, and he could do anything and he's blown our mind. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I know we need to be paying attention to the Arctic and the North, and I know Russia's just on the other side. Like, we have a lot of work that we need to do to be beefing up our military, so we do act. And I do like that, Carney, he seems like he can be that leader who can stand up to the world and say, hey, we should be really proud of who we are as Canadians. We don't actually need the rest of the world. Let's invest in what's happening here in Canada. Let's invest in our military so that we can protect ourselves. Because do I think he's going to come in here and take Canada and take Alberta? No. But one day when he needs the water, he already thinks our water situation's unfair. So, if they're desperate times, one day they might come just figure out how to take our water.
Okay, and right back to you, because you got to leave right after this. I got to get you on the record. Then I'm going to ask your colleagues. That's the nicest thing I've ever done.
We've never called each other that, but whatever.
It's very formal right now. Should Danielle Smith have done the gig with Ben Shapiro, and what are your thoughts on Alberta's premier being down there?
I think Danielle Smith knows her audience, and I think she knows what she's doing, and I don't think it was election meddling, but I don't know. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
That's Jenny Adams,
Bye,
principal
Jenny.
at the Adams
We love
Agency.
Jenny.
If you ever find yourself in super hot water and you need to get out of it, contact the Adams Agency. Yeah, we don't talk about Jenny's clients.
Ryan and Catherine, all of you guys have me on retainer.
Yeah, we all have you on retainer, Jenny. Thank you very much.
I think we'd be nicer, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Okay, we'll circle back. I asked Jenny 2 questions back to back, but do you is there a part of you that actually thinks that Canada could? I mean, the whole 51st state stuff. There's like the voluntary angle on that, and then there's the involuntary angle. And everybody said, well, Donald Trump has talked about. I mean, even the artwork. Who's the painting he's got? I'm drawing a blank. He's got a painting up in the Oval Office now, reportedly, of the guy that went in and basically grew into like New Mexico and Texas, like way back in the day. Like, he has aspirations. How seriously do you take it?
Yeah, I think Trump's expansionist aspirations are very real. It's part of this grander, large plan that is out there. And again, as Canadians, it's time that we go back to the Turks and Caicos expansionist plans. How do we surround the U.S. and say, let's create a ring around them? No. I think Canadian sentiments towards this whole thing, you can see how people's attitudes have changed towards America. If you look at, who we're willing to look at as trade partners, the appetite Canadians have for a greater and closer relationship with Europe, with the EU, has spiked in a dramatic way when it comes to things like trade and economic relations. And I think that's the opportunity that Carney had seen, and that's why he spent that first week out there. He's understanding the tea leaves on this in a much deeper way than other Canadian politicians have. Like, if you look at the attitudes, people now want to move away from the Pan-Pacific Pan-Asian trade alliance that basically the Liberals had kind of touted for a long, long time. That's the direction we want to go on. Canadian attitudes towards trade has shifted dramatically, and they want to embrace the Europe in a way. And it's only Albertans who are saying, yes, let's continue to try to build relationships in the U.S. And so Danielle Smith understands that that's her audience, understands that's who she's playing to. But the rest of Canada wants a close relationship with Europe. And Carney's playing to that.
By the way, it's the 11th president of the United States, James K. Polk. And people can read about it at WSJ.com, the Wall Street Journal. Here, the story, the painting that explains Trump's foreign policy. James Polk, president of the United States, mid-1800s, expanded the U.S. more than any other president. And now his portrait's hanging in the Oval Office. Writes the Wall Street Journal, a signal that President Trump's ambition to take over Canada, Greenland, and other territory is more than just talk.
Yeah, and it just goes back to why this election is just so different. It's not even an election in my mind. It is like an existential threat to our country. And that's why Carney is speaking to people's fears. And you have the NDP and the Conservatives off doing some election from last year. They are stuck in the past. You have to be speaking about what we're going to do as a country and not bickering amongst each other and talking about plagiarism of like things that. And you're going to hear people talking about Carney's book next and all this small ball stuff. And it's like, enough with the small ball stuff. People are that worried that Trump wants to take over our country. It's no longer a joke. Or that our economy is going to be ruined because they're going to put all these tariffs on it. And if you are in these provinces that are close and are like, you wake up and your neighbor, you look across the way and you see your neighbor and it's not your neighbor anymore. It doesn't feel like our neighbor anymore. It has changed. And in our lifetime, the U.S. was just this friendly neighbor where we had this incredible relationship that we all took for granted. You could go across the border, back and forth. No one even thought twice about it. And now we have this fundamentally different relationship. It will never be the same. Mark Carney talked about it last week, saying we have to reimagine our own economy. And hearing that kind of language, I think, is why even how he's not even good on the poll. Like, you've seen him on the election stump. He's terrible. He is terrible. But when he puts his prime minister hat on, I don't think we've seen a stronger leader in a long time.
Give us an example. Give the audience an example of what Mark Carney is so terrible.
Well, for example, if you see what he was doing in Quebec, he mispronounced the Polytechnique. He called it Concordia. He mispronounced the Liberal candidate who was a survivor of the Polytechnique shooting.
Massacre. Jeez.
Yeah, and in Quebec, that's not good. And it hasn't affected him. And she even went on the record saying, don't care. These times it's more about who cares about the mispronunciation. We've got bigger issues right now. So stuff like that, he's just unsure of himself. You can tell that this is, and let's give him some grace here. This guy has not been in politics before. And his first campaign is for Prime Minister of Canada. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, Donald Trump did the exact same thing as president of the United States,
he
right?
did, but he was an apprentice. He was a performer. He's an entertainer.
Reality TV show star.
What are you saying that equips him to be the leader of the free world because he had a
no, but it equips him to run for politics.
It
equips him to run for politics.
It makes him a better campaigner. It makes him a way better
campaigner. Like, if you could be on a reality TV show in advance of a political run,
don't you think this debate's going to be fascinating? Because that's the next test where, particularly in French, this guy isn't his language skills are not great. And he hasn't been in debates like this before.
No, he's doing.
There's one French. There was another one they wanted to add. He's doing one French, one English.
Hey, by the way, wanted to let you guys know, all of you, thank you for your support on Patreon. Johnny and I have announced to our Real Talk Patreon supporters exclusively on April 17th a Real Talk. It's a special debate night election viewing party. So we're going to be viewing the debate together at an undisclosed location. Cool. If you support us only on Patreon, these are our Patreon supporters, something special for you guys on April 17th. So circle that on the calendar. Ben Shapiro, so he's one of the most popular podcasters in the world for sure. Obviously, this is who Danielle Smith was hanging out with at this PragerU fundraiser in Florida. About 25 minutes on stage. And then Shapiro, after talking to Danielle Smith, put this video out to his supporters, to his audience, and I thought it was kind of interesting. Wanted to ask you guys about it. So here he is, after sitting down with Alberta's Premier. Here's Ben Shapiro.
Right now, Americans are giving President Trump the benefit of the doubt, as they should. He's doing a lot of great things, which we'll get to in a moment, particularly with regard to Doge. However, this is having an impact on President Trump's approval ratings, particularly on the economy. And as I've said before, the way that people's relationship with politicians works in terms of public approval rating is sort of like a marriage. If the marriage is good, it's people doing little things for each other. It's people with a shared sense of values that carries out over time. If things go bad, typically there are a bunch of things that are small and that eat away at the back of your mind that are bad. And then suddenly the bottom goes out. And right now, if the bottom goes out on the economy, it will take the rest of President Trump's agenda with it. CNN's Harry Ensign was analyzing the polls with regard to the economy, and they are not where they should be for President Trump.
They want him prioritizing inflation. They don't want him prioritizing tariffs. Yet that is exactly what he is doing. So on this particular issue, Donald Trump is simply put not with the American public. They oppose the tariffs, and yet they believe Donald Trump is going ahead with them. And that is a big reason why we've seen Donald Trump's overall approval rating take a pretty big dip over the last 2 months and change.
Okay, so again, President Trump is still riding pretty high, but all of that is predicated on no serious economic downturn. And there's no reason for this because the rest of Trump's agenda is highly popular with the American people. So yes.
Okay, so there he is. And and he goes on from there, obviously. But you've got Ben Shapiro arguing against tariffs, saying it's going to hurt Trump, saying it's going to hurt the Republicans, it's going to hurt his agenda. And I've seen some folks, including local conservative pundit David Staples, claim that alone justifies her trip to Florida. Are you sold?
No, I again, I think right now in a term of during an election cycle, when this issue is about Canadian sovereignty, Canadian identity, I think right now the focus is and should be on, what does the future of Canada look like? Having Danielle Smith kind of go around, that process and those kind of state to state conversations to go meddle in the middle of this it was a bad look regardless of what the outcome looks like. Ultimately, building those relationships is important. Everybody understands that. Everybody understands that we need to continue to build relationships with the Republican Party, with people in the Republican circles, but not at this time. I think that's the question, is about timing.
And Pierre Poilievre must be like, stop.
Well,
absolutely stop. Because in Ontario, Quebec, that just hurts you even more.
First 2 days of the election, what's the big story in Ontario and Quebec? It's Danielle Smith's interview on Breitbart, right? Like, it's what she said about, put the tariffs on pause until we get through this election, right? That dominated the news in Ontario and Quebec. So it's like from that angle, it's like from the federal angle, Poilievre's got to hate this. Local angle, a little different, right? Things are a little bit different in Alberta. But that being said, I mean,
they're preaching. They got the votes here. They don't
need the votes. If the Liberals win,
here.
they're going to see a whole bunch of backlash, and guys are going to put petitions together for Alberta separation referendum. There's going to be all this craziness. I don't know if that's an issue that they want to go too hard on. Like, what would a referendum on Alberta separation get? Like, would 15% of Albertans support that? Maybe 20, maybe. It's an 80-20 issue at best, and she's playing with fire. Like,
do you think Pierre Poilievre disavows her at any point during this campaign? That's the question I have as far as
Danielle Smith?
Yes, I wonder, like, with what's happening. What's happening with the campaign?
What does that mean? What do you mean?
That he would say, I disagree, like something that would just publicly say, enough, stop.
No, but
talking.
the issue is, and Danielle Smith, the problem that Canadians have is that so many conservative leaders in this country have been playing footsies with the Trump ecosystem for years. And that's the backlash that Pierre can't get around. And for Danielle Smith to continue to do that, to continue to build those relationships with that Trump ecosystem that so many Canadians now see as vile and vicious and toxic towards Canadians, like, you're right. Pierre at some stage has to distance himself.
But that's what I'm saying. Will he?
And
I don't.
But in order for him to pivot, he needs to do it, Catherine. You're right. Like, he has to somehow put gaps between him and those people and those pundits and those conservatives who want to continue to build relationships right now.
Can you imagine? See, this is why.
And it's open war, right?
It's open war.
I mean, if they lose, they might be. I mean, like,
it's
the
open
promise
war.
of a united right, like uniting the PCs and the Canadian Alliance. The promise was, we got to do this to beat the Liberals. I mean, 4 losses in a row to the Liberals. That promise is no longer there. I mean, there could be some civil war here within the conservative camps if they lose again.
Well, then what does the NDP do? Like, they're not going to be official party
they're
staff.
They're done. They're so done. It is
So
wild.
we go to a 2-party, and then if we have a splinter on the right,
it's wild.
Super Chat Ken tossing $5 into the Super Chat. Thanks very much, Ken. He's just bought each of you a beer. And Harman, for you, a blackberry or a cherry flavored bubbly. We got it cold for you in the fridge, pal. Ken wonders, can the panel name anyone on Pierre Poilievre's team that has the financial chops that could give me confidence that they could get Canada out of our GDP rut? That from Ken. Wondering if there's anybody that... Okay, we'll let that sit like that.
You know what? They have a lot of strong people running for them. I'm not going to take away what the Conservatives have put together. But again, they're running an election from last year. We're in a different time, and they have not caught up to the political reality that is happening right now. People are scared beyond, and like the fact that our economy is going to take a drubbing like we have never felt since COVID, and then beyond, like even worse than COVID, what happened. And this was only 5 years ago. We've barely caught our breath since COVID. Now we're back into this, and people are way ahead of the politicians here, way ahead of them. To see how much they've turned around the polls, that is showing that the public has figured this out quite quickly, and their problem is Trump. They don't care about anybody else right now but Trump.
Okay, hang tight. We're going to be back with more from Katherine O'Neill, Harman Kandola, and JC. I want to ask you two, what you make of 2 ridings in particular in Edmonton, including Edmonton's mayor, Amarjeet Sohi, throwing his hat back into the ring, wants to represent the Liberals in Alberta. And then my riding, I'm not just being selfish. I think it'll be one of the tightest races, Edmonton Centre, in the entire country. Could be, maybe not. But we'll get into it. Before we do, all this talk about economics and certainly uncertainty. I know for a lot of you, you know that your wealth deserves specialized attention. And North Road Investment Council provides tailored strategies for high net worth individuals, ensuring that your financial goals are met with precision and care. Learn more about their one-of-a-kind digital risk advisory services on their website. That's northroadic.com. They are the only ones in the space offering digital risk advisory. You can take their digital risk quiz today on the website and, of course, connect with Marshall, Carey, and their team at northroadic.com. We're so proud to be supporting UCAN Youth Services, a partnership running through this year, and I am blown away at the incredibly important work that they're doing, in particular with young people. I want to shine a light on their relentless outreach workers today. You can learn more at ucan.ca. They stop at nothing within reasonable measures to reach out to young people, empowering them in making positive, healthy, and life-changing decisions. They work with the Edmonton Police Service Youth Unit. There's a list of 50 young people, 12 to 17. Think about this for a second. Age 12 to 17 that most interact with police. This is who UCAN Youth Services is working with. Putting roofs over their head, getting lunches into their bellies, making sure that they're connected with positive peer groups. This program operates on referrals from the EPS. You can learn more. And if you feel led, make a donation today by checking out ucan.ca. Athabasca University, Canada's open university, offering many programs and courses regardless of where you are in your post-secondary journey. Maybe you're looking to level up, for example, understanding neurodiversity in the workplace. If you're an employer, you're going to be hiring Gen Z. You want to know about this stuff? We talked about that just last week. They've got an MBA program that, man, it's helping folks launch into the next level of their careers as well. More than 94% of Athabasca University alumni report they're satisfied with their AU education. I bet a big part of that is the fact that it is custom designed to fit your schedule and your only commute to your device. Learn more about the AU Advantage today at athabascau.ca. And a shout out to our friends at Complete Care Restoration, getting folks, whether it's homes or businesses, damaged in unexpected circumstances, back on their feet. Whether it's smoke damage, fire, flood, burst pipes, sewer backups, I mean, you name it, they've seen it. More than 25 years of experience restoring properties and rebuilding peace of mind. They're the only Real Talk partner that hopes you never call them. But if disaster strikes, don't think twice. Contact CompleteCareRestoration.ca. It's our group chat roundtable on week 2 of the federal election campaign. Harman Kandola, Jarrett Campbell, and Katherine O'Neill. Edmonton's Mayor Amarjeet Sohi taking an unpaid leave, but not resigning. Joined us in studio last week, said he legitimately had not decided on whether or not he was going to seek re-election as mayor. Instead, he will not. He says he'll either win or lose on Team Carney in the riding of Edmonton Southeast. If he loses, it'll be the end of his political career, at least for now. What do you make of the move? Do you think he can win in Edmonton Southeast? His critics are calling him a political opportunist, saying he should have resigned at the very least. What do you think, KO?
I think if this was this one's tough because I don't think before Christmas anyone knew this was going to happen. So if people thought he knew that Carney was going to come out of any, then they should go into predictions, because that would have been a huge one. But I think this is his second time taking a leave. I don't love that. I think you should have, and there's not that much time left after the election. I think he should have left and done the honorable thing that way. And so I'm disappointed because of the fact it is the second time. If it had been the first time, I think I would have had more grace for it, but it's your second time leaving to go take a test at federal politics.
It's a tough look if you take leave and then you lose and then you
come back. That's right? What I mean, if he comes back, and that is tough. And I get it that he thinks that he's helping the city, but I think it's a real disruption. I think if he is taking a leave, there's only a few months left after they can get stuff done and wind things down heading into the next election.
What do you think, Harman?
You know, I've known Amarjeet Sohi for many years, many decades, and I know him to be, you know, a good person, genuine individual. But going into, seeing a lot of former Liberal MPs who've done the U-turn has been
it's been interesting.
Sean Fraser.
Sean Fraser. That's all. I don't care about my family. Oh no, I'm back. I'm back.
Yeah, Sean Fraser. Yeah, apparently his spending time with his family wasn't that valuable. So he's done the
too
U-turn.
much Paw Patrol. Now he's back.
Exactly. And so I think a lot of people with Amarjeet and with Mr. Sohi. Again, I think he was going to have a challenge this municipal cycle. There was a lot of people who understand he's a very pragmatic individual in his approach to politics. And I think Southeast Edmonton, when you look at, the polling numbers, definitely shows it being something that's in play for the Liberals. I think he's got a good chance at it, except there is a lot of local resentment towards him leaving a second time. I think that sentiment is there on the ground. But he is facing a challenger, a newcomer to politics in Jigsaw Mall from the Conservatives. So, that's a campaign.
Do you have insights into him,
Yeah,
Harman? Do you know him at all? You know
Yeah,
anything
absolutely.
about him?
Yeah, he's a lawyer. He's done work, in Southeast Edmonton. He's done a lot of kind of volunteering and pro bono work, but again, like untested in a general election. And Amarjeet knows how to put a machine together on the ground.
Yeah.
Can he get over a bit of that backlash? Does that make enough of a difference? Right now, I think the polling shows that's a riding that's up 8% for the Liberals. Is there enough there for the Conservatives to make up? I think it's a challenge. I think one of the difficulties the Conservatives have had in a lot of these local ridings is that they were riding on such a high. They started meddling a bit in local races. We've seen that in Calgary. We've seen it in Edmonton. Where they opened up nominations or they did appointments. They DQ'd certain candidates, and there's going to be a backlash from people who've now been shafted when it came to their ability to run. We saw it with 2015 with the PCs. There was a lot of arrogance when it came to local campaigns and dictating from the top, and that may make the difference in some of these marginal ridings.
Yeah,
well, look at that
every
riding.
vote
I mean,
counts.
they DQ'd the top two people who sold the most memberships in that riding, trying to meddle in it. Didn't get the guy they wanted regardless, but now wouldn't it be nice to go up against a star candidate with the guy that sold the most memberships?
Yeah, and you got to remember,
probably would have been nice on the ground to have that.
That's a riding where they had 11,000 memberships. That's the most memberships across Canada.
Really?
And so,
Wow.
to kind of push out people who were the top membership vote getters is going to be a challenge, because you need that individual who sold 4,000 memberships,
Exactly.
5,000 memberships. That's the marginal difference. And I think a lot of these ridings, Southeast Edmonton, Edmonton Gateway, Calgary Skyview, Calgary McKnight, Edmonton Centre, these are the 5 or 6, and I think Calgary Confederation, those are the 6 ridings that are in play for the Liberals. Could you imagine coming out of this election with 4 Liberal MPs in Alberta?
They're saying this might be their best showing
we had
since
4
68.
in 2015. We had 4.
Yeah. And they're saying since 68, this might be their best showing for the Liberals, which is, again, like, wow.
But it's the
wild
NDP
swing.
vote collapse that makes it competitive.
Yes.
Because, again, right now, in a lot of those ridings, you don't even have NDP candidates, right?
So what's going to happen center?
In Edmonton Gateway, you don't even have an NDP candidate. Instead, you have an NDP MLA running for the Liberals, right? And so that dynamic...
Is that Rod Loyola?
That's Rod Loyola, right? And so that's that dynamic now in a race where now you're not worried about the NDP vote. That makes that a very competitive...
Yes.
And now we've got an individual who's running as an independent, who was a former CPC candidate. He takes those 1,000, 2,000 votes. That's a riding in play.
Jill says, I'm willing to give the Liberals a pass if in these crazy times they're simply calling some of their stronger candidates back in. It might seem opportunistic, or it could be just that Mark Carney wants a top team. Interesting developments in Edmonton Centre. That's my riding, the incumbent Randy Boissonneau at the 11th hour. So did you guys hear about this? I had the hot scoop. I went to a print shop for something completely unrelated. Did you hear about this? Yeah, and I walk into the print shop, and literally as I walk in, Buddy's like, you want a tour? You want to see it? And I'm like, yeah, sure, buddy. I'm always interested in learning new things about new industries. I walk in the back, and it's just Randy Boissonneau lawn signs just printing off. And so it was literally you guys that I wanted to end Real Talkers. But first of all, I said, may I shoot a quick video of this? I was trying to be cool. I was like, oh, cool. Can I shoot a video of this? And Buddy's like, absolutely not. And then I'm like, I said, if I just send it to a private group chat? I was talking, and he goes, hey, you can't shoot any videos in here. And I go, okay. He goes, you can shoot anything non-political, but you can't shoot the lawn signs. Well, so then I come back in here on the Friday morning, like 12 hours later, and let Real Talkers know it's happening. I watched with my own eyes thousands of dollars of lawn signs being printed off. Well, guess what? It ain't happening. And Randy Boissonneau says that after consultation with friends and family, he's not running. Obviously, the Carney team killed that dream of his. People are still getting mail outs in their mailboxes.
I got one.
You got one?
I got one
like
on
when?
Friday.
How many days
Friday.
ago?
Friday.
Okay. So this was an 11th hour decision.
100%. Because those are thousands of dollars.
He's been the federal jobs minister. He's out. He's not even running. Instead, Eleanor Olszewski moves from Edmonton Strathcona into that riding to run for the Liberals. So respectfully to Eleanor, everybody you talk to about her, everybody that knows her says she's like a great team player. She's been a long time. Great. I don't know her personally. They say she's a solid candidate, but she's not a star candidate.
No.
It's not Don Iveson. It's not Mark Carney running against Saeed Ahmed, who and when I say stole the nomination, I don't mean like in a Donald, like I'm not saying he stole it. I'm saying he busted his ass and sold a bunch of memberships and beat James Cumming and surprised James Cumming for sure. So he's the Conservative candidate, and probably the biggest name in the race is the NDP candidate. Yes. Tricia Estabrooks, former chair of the Edmonton Public School Board. What happens in Centre, and what does it say about Alberta? What does it say about Canada?
Well, so, I mean, the local candidate can only shift that much of the vote, right? Like, so in a tight riding, we talked about that in Southeast, tight riding, you got the Sohi machine versus kind of an unknown CPC guy. If it was going to be a blowout, it's going to be a blowout. And I think Edmonton Centre is going to be, it's consistently close, but it's close between the Liberals and the Conservatives, and it goes back and forth, and it has for a long time. If indeed the NDP vote collapse, and despite the fact that Trish Estabrooks is a very strong candidate, if the NDP vote collapse actually does happen, it puts the Liberals in a very, very strong position in Centre. Yeah. Now, Eleanor is brand new. She hasn't shown up. I mean, the mail outs are still saying Randy's name on it. So from like a local,
it's a little tricky.
From a local standpoint, probably Tricia can push it a little bit, but like she's pushing a rock uphill if the federally like the vote's collapsing, and so. You got to think the Liberals win, right? You got to think the Liberals, just based on
I think it's
Carney,
liberal,
the national polls, they got a really good advantage on this one. I was hoping for a star candidate. When I heard, when we got wind that Bosno was going to be axed, it was like, okay, well, here comes Don Iveson.
I have a list of 5
maybe Carney
people.
is running in Edmonton, right? And then it was, we're just moving our Strathcona candidate.
But did you see Cummings? He posted, I think over the weekend, a picture with him and the Conservative candidate.
And
a classy move, and is showing, supporting the campaign, bringing his machine to that. Because that could have been, divisive as far as, he didn't win the nomination, but he's up there being a team player. And I've been on those doors before. I've campaigned on those doors, and it is a dogfight no matter what. In that is one every party's working hard.
Syed Ahmed, former UCP candidate, worked very, very hard in his last election. Known to be, a guy who works hard on the grassroots, highly, considered within like conservative circles. A guy who's a former economist with the government, so not a complete unknown when it came to his running in Centre.
And now Cummings is helping him, so it's they're formidable for sure.
But again, with the NDP vote collapse, right? It was a 600 vote margin last time. I mean, it's always been very, very close. And if the NDP collapse, then where do those votes go, right? That's the big problem.
There's this photo, KO. So you got Saeed Ahmed with you got Matt Genereux. Obviously a pretty popular, but although not prominent, popular, but nice enough guy, Matt Genereux. But he's never not like, I don't know, what is he? Too soft spoken to be a friend? What's the deal? I don't know.
He was an Aaron O'Toole guy, right? Yeah. Back then he was a little bit more prominent, and I think under Pierre you don't see him as much.
You got Genereux there. You got James Cumming, and then Tim Uppel, and Garnet Jennis. They must be outdoor knocking. I'm not trying to be a prick, but like, what is up with Garnet Jennis' shoes? Let me just zoom in here. Look at that. Like,
he's door knocking. It's snowy out there.
I know, but like, what are these guys making?
That guy's hitting the doors.
I've heard, and I know
those
that this
are door knocking shoes.
Wow,
they're not that comfortable though.
Look at Uppel's shoes. Look at Ahmed's shoes. Saeed Ahmed knows what's up. That guy's getting his shoes shined. But anyway, I'm just saying, if you're making $250,000 a year.
Matt's the one actually door knocking. He's got the runners on. He's getting
get your hokas out there, man.
But Matt doesn't have to worry. He'd win even if he showed up.
Okay, I know everybody's got to go. You guys have appointments and real jobs. So finally, real quick, is Stephen Mandel coming back this fall? Is Stephen Mandel going to run in the municipal election in Edmonton? You guys know Stephen.
I sure hope so.
What do you think?
I sure hope so.
Not for mayor.
Whatever he wants to run for.
You think he might run for mayor?
No, I don't think so.
No, he's not. He is not running for mayor.
He'd run for councillor. I think it's wild.
I think it would be
awesome.
I want him back. I think the city needs it. I mean, I think that there's a little bit kind of chutzpah that Stephen Mandel could bring to the table.
Just old man energy.
Just a little, just old
man energy. Like, what the hell? I am not co-signing any of that.
I don't know.
Jenny back.
But I don't know if you want to be like. Would you want to be the new mayor of Edmonton, and then you have a former, quite popular mayor of Edmonton just sitting on your council?
Somebody's gonna go yell at people, and somebody's gonna go like, get the herd together.
And I love the candidate there right now. Palmer is incredible. If he ran in that ward, I think it would be very disappointing, because I think 2 is a force to be reckoned with. And I really think that, like, I just want new blood, new energy, people that
Stephen Mandel built this downtown.
Okay.
He
Let's
rebuilt
not
this city.
have a Mandel re-litigation thing. But,
This
and I'm a
man
big
got
Mandel
things
fan.
done. He got things done, KO, and that's the energy people want
talk
back on
about-
council.
I couldn't
They
help
want doers.
myself. I couldn't help
Okay,
myself.
yeah, this is what. Oh, man.
The good news is there's lots of time between now and then, and we will certainly reconvene the group chat roundtable. I want to let you know that these beauties, and Jenny and Sarah Hamilton, who rounds out this group chat, have all agreed to be with us the morning after the
Yes.
federal election. I think this is going to be really great. We're looping in Vicky Mochama as well. She's going to join us for
She's
10:15.
great.
Hey,
I
what do you
love-
think of her new podcast?
Love her.
Is
I think
Johnny
she's
killing
great.
it on that
Great,
podcast or
great
what?
energy. She's great.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Her new podcast, Party All the Time, is out with new episodes every Friday, and Vicky's going to be joining us. She joins us every Tuesday through the campaign, so Vicky will be back on the show tomorrow. You look like you wanted to say something before I roll hot into positive reflections.
Okay, I have a positive
Okay,
reflection.
good.
So I will save it for positive
Okay, so we've
reflections.
tasked each of these panelists, these group chat members, with coming up with something positive. JC looks like he's
scared.
He's had an hour, and he hasn't been able to think of anything yet. Before we get there, real quick, our friends at Friesen Brothers want you to know that coming up on April 5th and 6th, you've got, like, basically a week to make your plan here at select Friesen Brothers locations. They present their first ever Friesen Brothers Filipino Feast at all their Fresh Market stores. Don't miss out on tasting authentic Filipino dishes cooked by Friesen Brothers Red Seal chefs, and all-you-can-eat feast, including famous Filipino dishes like pork adobo and beef caldereta and chicken and asal and more, plus a full salad bar, all for $25 per person. That's April 5th and 6th from 4 to 8 p.m. at all Friesen Brothers Fresh Market stores. That's Glenora, Rabbit Hill, Stony, Hinton Hill, Peace River, Fort Sask, and what's up? Drumheller. You can find all the details at friesen.com. All right, every Monday, courtesy of our friends at Solar by Kuby, we take a moment to just focus on the positives, to go around the table in this case. This is the first ever group chat positive reflection that we've ever presented, so I'm looking forward to this. But our friends at Kuby understand that, of course, sometimes on a Monday, people have a case of the Mondays. So courtesy of Solar by Kuby, a chance to focus on the positives, restore our faith in humanity. It's Positive Reflections, presented by Kuby Renewable Energy. All right, around the table, something that's making you happy or restoring your faith in humanity. KO.
Okay, Jesperson, I could not be happier about the fact at the YWCA Edmonton, we've brought back something called Women of Distinction.
Nice.
So these were awards that have been around since 1982. Every year we stop and we honor women who are doing incredible things in our community. It's been on hiatus since 2015. It's been on my to-do list to bring it back. This year it's coming back. If you pick up your April issue of Edify magazine, we've partnered with Edify.
Nice.
You're going to see features about all 5 women who we have recognized this year. So pick up a copy of Edify. Thanks to Trudy for partnering with the YWC on this. And on May 1st at the Royal Glenora, we're going to be holding a luncheon to celebrate these extraordinary women who are leading the way in our community, doing positive things for our city and making our capital region better for everybody. And I'll point out Jocelyn Verreau, who's the trailblazer that we recognize this year. She teaches at Yellowhead College, Tribal College. She is marrying AI with indigenous ways of knowing. She's been asked to talk in Saudi Arabia at the UNESCO UN Healthy Cities gathering. So incredible people you might not know right now, but hopefully you'll know them after we honor them this year. So I can't recommend Edify enough this month. Pick it up and check out these incredible women.
I love it, KO. People can learn more at ywcaofedmonton.org. Harman.
Yeah, something a little bit more personal. Recently, one of my friends, Sonny Chada, JC knows him well. We're good friends with him. He was coming downtown to come to a meeting that we were all going to be at, and he keeps calling me incessantly before the meeting because he doesn't want to have to pay for parking. And I was very disturbed and bothered that somebody wouldn't pay for parking. And this morning, I forgot my wallet, didn't understand how to use the parking app. My good friend Jarrett Campbell paid for my parking.
Oh my God.
And so I was really touched this morning.
This is actually a big deal.
Getting JC to
get off his wallet.
Yes, absolutely. That's a tough thing for JC.
Hey, I thought this was supposed to be positive.
Having a friend who refuses to come to a meeting that he's supposed to be at and wanting to pay for parking. And here I've got a friend, Jarrett Campbell, who's willing to do that. On another positive note, recently, my mother got her hearing back. She lost it suddenly last year. And kudos to all the doctors and professionals at the Glen Rose. So many times we beat up on healthcare workers, we beat up on people in our health system, and in this situation, I've never seen people take so much care and time to provide such a high level of care to my mother, and I'm very grateful for that.
I love it. Hey, you're getting shouts out in the chat. Jill said, "What a baller!" Says JC the baller, picking up everything.
He'll pay for everyone's parking.
$3-4 for parking here, there, no big deal, right?
Yeah. How about you, brother?
My daughter just turned 2 last week, so positive shout out to her for turning 2 and filling my world with joy.
Awesome, brother. That's great. I'm also going to focus on family. I'm very proud of my Wyatt Rudy, first year U11 Northwest Hawks. They had their last game last night against rival KC. They emerged with a 4-2 victory, including an empty netter. I wanted to shout out all those kids. It's been a huge honor to serve as an assistant coach, but I just want a proud dad moment for a second. Wyatt received the medal last night for the entire season. He received the medal for most team spirit. Awesome. And engraved on the medal, it says this award celebrates the one player who's shown the most positive attitude through the season, sharing encouragement and inspiring confidence among their teammates. And I almost got emotional when I read it in the car with him, and I just let him know of all the things we focus on. I mean, I would love if he'd score more goals, but that's not what it's all about. It's all about, and you guys do that with us, and I know that our audience does this with us, and we hope that we do this to the audience as well. Positive attitudes throughout a season of life, a season of hockey, whatever it is, the highs and the lows, the strikes and the gutters, as they say, sharing encouragement and inspiring confidence in others. Isn't that what it's all about? If you have a positive reflection you'd love to share with the show, our email inbox open 24 hours a day. talk@ryanjesperson.com. And don't forget, you can get a free solar quote anytime by visiting Kuby.ca. Positive Reflections, proudly presented weekly on Real Talk by our friends at Solar by Kuby. My shout out to the Real Talk Roundtable. I love you guys. Jarrett Campbell, Harman Kandola, Katherine O'Neill, Jenny Adams joining us before, and Sarah Hamilton will be back the morning after the election. Real Talkers, thanks to you. Vicky Mochama tomorrow. We'll see you then.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson. Executive producer Josh Dunford. Technical producer John Hicks. General manager Katie Cook-Chivers. Account coordinator Lawrence Derlego. Human resources Lena Shepard. Website design Mike Johnston. Voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harman Kandola, Katherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.